Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. Waking up for a very early morning over here on this nice little Friday from a very bright and sunny Helsinki, Finland ever since 2 fucking a.m. this morning. Just insanity, man. It literally does not get dark at all. It's insane. And you will literally go insane if you don't get your sleep. So with all of that said, I do want to say, I do want to wish you a happy Friday, although it is just an arbitrary time construct of man's making. But the arbitrary construct of time now going to be the monthly and weekly close for CMEs later tonight, as well as our regular monthly close for spot markets on, I believe, Sunday is going to be the last day of this trading month. So a lot of interesting things to be looking at for the higher and maybe even macro timeframes. And then, of course, we did hit our short and medium term targets from yesterday at the 95 to 9600-ish region, alongside some very interesting closes on the daily. So I do believe that not just the short term timeframes are interesting here once again, but also the high term timeframes. And this could really lead on to the macro timeframes as well. So I do believe that this is one of those times to really be paying attention, especially in Bitcoin land, as things are looking interesting here, to say the least. Anyways, on top of all that, I should say that I will probably very likely be on Twitch later today. Just need to make sure that I run a few errands and make sure that everything's done on time. But assuming that all goes well and good, then I should be on in, like, I don't know, maybe 5-6 hours from the posting of this video, sometime around 2 to 3 Eastern European time zone, maybe a little bit later depending upon how laggardish I am. Of course, I will be uploading to my new gaming channel as well for anyone who happens to give a fuck. If you are interested in strategy games or Total War for that matter, definitely go check it out at Total Krown. I'll have a link in the comment section below. Of course, if that's not you, don't feel obligated to. It's all good. It's not like required. I'm not gonna be mad at anyone who doesn't join on in. It's all good, man. But for the people out there who might be interested in such things, I'd like to invite you on over because, well, what's better than that? Anyways, on top of that, we got the Krown trading application right in front of our faces, which is showing open interest, gaining about 100 million from yesterday to today, now heading up to that 2.6 million marker. But what I really want to see now is because all of this is new. We added all the major derivative exchanges now, which is why that number shot up like, Jesus Christ, like a ton. I can't do any mental math right now, but a ton, to put it bluntly. I do want to see what the next open interest read is going to be if and when Bitcoin does break the higher term time frame range. The higher term time frame range being 9,800 to the upside, still the same, 8,600 to the downside. Once we get a breakage of that range, I would really like to take a keen eye on the open interest to see where it is during that price action, so that we can now start to come up with a baseline of what to expect going forwards from here. Because again, this is new information for myself, and I really have found that after doing some data mining, there's it's very difficult to get legitimate information in the cryptocurrency space. Very funny thing about that. So it's very enlightening to have our own metrics on over here, but that also does mean that it's new for myself as well. So I don't really have a baseline to interpret it off of just yet. So I'm going to be documenting this as time goes on. So yeah. Anyways, on top of that, we see Bitcoin dominance steady from yesterday to today, still hanging around the 66% mark, which I'm still long-term bullish on. Short-term, we could perhaps look at that as well. All the other top-end metrics going up a few, well, actually, no, steady here. Fear and greed index coming up to a 48, so more towards the neutral-ish zone from a 41 yesterday. And now let's go look at some goddamn price action, because, like I said, it is the weekly and monthly close for CMEs today. I know that there's a lot of questions about that. Krown, is today the last monthly close for CMEs? Actually, yes, because you have to think about it this way. When CME opens up on Sunday, I believe that is considered the Monday's trading day. Now I could actually be wrong in this one, because it is a little bit of a weird situation, because technically Sunday is still May, but because Sunday CME's opens is essentially the Monday trading day, then I believe today is the last trading day for the month of May once again. So with that said, let's go take a look at the high. Well, do we want to look at? No, we'll look at the higher term timeframes later. Let's cover up the lower term timeframes first. Yesterday I left you off when Bitcoin was around like 9,100, 9,150. We said still very likely bullish here. Yes, there was hidden bearish divergence in play, but it just wasn't what was lining up with the medium and higher term timeframes. Yes, it was present on the lower term timeframes, but again, it just the medium and higher term timeframes took over. And realistically, what is Bitcoin doing here? I mean, technically speaking, it does have a higher low here on our higher term timeframes, now confirmed, or I mean, well confirmed. I mean, it was confirmed like a couple days ago, actually. But more importantly, Bitcoin did close on that daily and also on the lower term timeframes above our next sort of pivotal zone right here. the 9,500-ish region. So to me, that is very, 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 very important for setting up the next major closes coming later today at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time for CME charts. Now, here's the thing: as far as the lower term time frame ranges go, still more or less the same. I mean, the same logic applies essentially. Like I said, we did hit our target up here, but realistically, do I think that we're just blindly going to work our way up or work our way down? I think that the easy trades have been had in this region, and right now is the time to be waiting for the higher term timeframes to solidify themselves. Because, well, if you've had patience enough for to wait all the way until the end of May, why not just wait another fucking half day, I guess? And realistically, if we do take out our last spike low on this 4-hour dildo time frame here at about 94, let's just call it 9,400, I would look for a retest, perhaps all the way down to 9,300 territory, retesting this broken resistance as support. However, it's looking to me that more sideways here is actually more good for Bitcoin. And we do have, of course, our descending trend line coming in from our $10,000 or just above $10,000 high, which would be meeting price action at about 9,700. So keep that in mind. Bitcoin actually will be forced to make a decision here if it does hold this blue box at 9,500 within the next few days, probably somewhere around here on literally the first day of June for spot price action. For CMEs is going to be a little bit different, I'd imagine. But realistically, right now, while I do have all these areas plotted out, I don't think that right now is the time to be playing the low-term timeframes, because it's too elusive here, and the margins are too slim. At least for myself, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Of course, everyone's free to do whatever the fuck they want. Of course, I mean, that's not my purpose here. But I do think that the margins are so slim and the higher-term timeframe ranges are so close, with with macro timeframes closing today for CMEs, I think that it's just worth waiting, because above 9,800, like I said, I'm very bullish for, at the very least, to move to 10.5 and probably beyond. And technically speaking, that would have a measure move on this symmetrical triangle, which I do believe it's more of a symmetrical triangle than anything else. I know that bears want to look at this as a descending triangle. I think that you can make the argument for that, but your argument gets destroyed when? It gets destroyed when we take out the last prior high right there at about 9,800. And technically speaking, there would be a measure move if we do break it to the upside around $11,000. So the reason why that is relevant is because if we do break out to the upside above 9,800, especially on at the very least a 4-hour closure, 9,800 needs a 12-hour closure or a daily closure for me to buy into it. 4-hour would need to close above 10,000 for me to respect it as as a clean breakout. The measure move would be pointed towards 11,000, which is interesting because it would also imply a target above our last prior high, even on a wick basis at 10,500. I think it was like a couple months ago. Right here, right here, which again would also fulfill not fulfill, but it would insinuate a change behavior from a volume profile standpoint, as well as anywhere above there you do see that things just tail off massively by a factor or divisible factor of 2. I don't know exactly what the right terminology is there, but my point is that we'd very likely get a free ride to about 11,500, another $1,000 on top of that. So yes, short term there's going to be ebbs and flows, but keep in mind the weekly is set up to kind of close at least somewhat like this as it is right now, with almost or potentially a full engulf in play if Bitcoin can close above the high of last week, which is 10,000. So of course it's not there right now, and maybe I probably shouldn't, actually, to be honest, I shouldn't have said that, no, because it's still $500 away. That's just not true. But realistically, with CMEs closing the weekly today, I do look at this as setting up very, very nicely. Anywhere here or higher, or anywhere even above 94.20, which is a great number, I do think that this is very likely to give, at the very least, another try up to the $10,000 prior high. And then at that point, you're going to be in contact with all the breakages of the major areas. Now, here's what I really want to focus on today is the monthly closure for CMEs. Any sort of a monthly closure above this last prior high right here and in early February at about 9,500, it looks like. And I would be bullish overall, very likely for a move over the next month or two to 11,500. Very rarely do I say more aggressive things like this, but that's because very rarely do things, populate themselves in a very appealing manner. And judging all the lower term timeframes and how they're going to kind of feed into the higher term timeframes, it does look rather interesting here. Now, of course, that's only $200 away from where price action is trading right now, and a $200 move in Bitcoin land is nothing, especially when you have, multiple hours to do it in. I mean, usually it needs about 5 minutes usually. So realistically, it is going to be very, 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 very important to wait for the monthly close, at least for myself today, because if it does close above this area right here, 9,500, or sorry, it is 9,500. Yes. I would be overall bullish. So that's only $100 away, not $200 away. So even less. And momentum oscillators would be turning up at the same time as well. Monthly Stokes going to be pointed up. Let's go actually to spot, which will likely follow through with CMEs, and it'll be pointed back up. Plus, it'll also be considered a rejection of the bearish control zone. That also alongside regaining the exponential on CME RSI. Plus, do we have? No, we don't have some right there. Yeah, I was gonna say we have some sort of divergence. We do not know, but more importantly, we also do see that the jewel would kind of give you a continuation haughtier long signal as well. Very, 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 very likely. Unfortunately, we don't have a forecast tool for this. I don't know if Paulie could actually put that together because it's too well. Maybe he could. I don't know. Maybe it's something we could talk about in the future. Although not as important right now. Anyways, on top of all of that, we are going to see a few other things come into motion here. I believe with our, what was it, the bi-weekly? Is the bi-weekly, I believe, is closing this week, isn't it? No, it's not. Okay, sorry. I do apologize about that. Maybe it was a triple weekly that I was looking at. Yeah, it's a triple weekly that's closing. If the triple weekly closes above 10,000, again, I am bullish for at the very least to move to 11,000, probably 11,500, and that just sets it up for a very nice look going onwards and forwards. That is all coming along the side of, again, a rejection of the bearish control zone here on triple weekly Stokes. And gaining momentum to the upside, and again, regaining the exponential right here as well. And this is all going to be further mediated by the fact that CMEs will have a chance to really confirm a bounce off the top of the prior resistance now being tested as support for that falling wedge that we saw in RSI for the last year, actually. This goes all the way back to June of last year. So this is a year-long formation that was resolved about 3-4 weeks ago in late April, retested this past prior week, and so far the retest has held it up off of it, and it will remain above this pivot as long as price action is above about $9,000. So right now Bitcoin's looking pretty primed. Again, like I said, until things are actually confirmed, well, we've all seen crazier things happen than a $500 move in Bitcoin in less than a day. But for right now, it does look good, and I would say that I respect this breakout. And more importantly, I put a lot of weight on formations in RSI. I don't necessarily put them on price action unless they're a triangle. Those seem to work out pretty damn well. But as far as wedges go, if it's an RSI, especially the longer the better. This one being a year-long formation here does provide a lot of healthiness to the overall look of Bitcoin as far as structure goes. Now, here's the thing. With all of this from those momentum oscillator perspectives, things are looking relatively good here. From a major moving average perspective, things look good as well. So I hate to say it, man, but I am fucking bullish here. Daily as the golden cross, it's gaining more and more divergence away from each other, especially with the 55 and 200. Beautiful. That's exactly what you want to see. 2-day, same sort of thing, which I think is even more important, as the 2-day is now really gaining divergence between the 21 and the 200, the yellow and the white moving averages, which historically speaking have been really good for long-term price action, which I'll go into right now. Like not even referencing the golden cross, which is good on its own, but the last cross that we had on this baby was back on over here, 15th of May, after this major base was put in the mid 5,000s. Bitcoin breaks out, boom, almost a 3x from that price point to 14,000 from 5,000. Over here, gets momentum to the downside rather well, and back on before that, gets the switch up from bear market to bull market in 2015 November extremely well as well, and then of course the genesis going all the way back to 2012 too. So to me, this is it's probably not good enough on its own, just because we don't really have that many iterations of it, but the iterations that we do have are rather powerful, and I do believe that as long as Bitcoin is above the white 200 simple, just historically speaking, that has been more or less good. And then looking at the slope of that 200 simple further confirms the healthiness of that trend. So anytime that Bitcoin's above, generally good. The slope of it keeps you in those long-term trends. My point is that over here, Bitcoin is above it, obviously, and the slope remains positive even through this like 70% dump right here. telling you to stay long for the next 1,000% move to the upside, essentially. And then same thing back on over here. Keeps you long the whole way from 2015 to 2020. So this is a long-term thing. And seeing as Bitcoin's bounced off of it a few times after retesting it, and now even grabbing hold of the lower period moving averages on the, on higher time frames like this, I do think that Bitcoin is setting up here for at least a try to the upside, and it's looking more or less good. We are seeing hidden bullish divergence on 2-day RSI play out, as we spoke about yesterday, and I do believe that's going to be good enough to test around 9,800-ish region, maybe even 10,000. 3-day is likely to fall through as well. I believe it's closing today too. Yes, it is closing today, and we do have hidden bullish divergence very likely in play. I think that is more of a formality to wait for it to be confirmed, but any sort of a close, especially above the last closing high at 31.10 is going to initiate that hidden bullish divergence and very likely propel a move to the top side of the medium term range at the very least, which would be around this 98 to 9,900-ish region right here, which I'll put in right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of this ascending trend line because I don't trust it that much. What I trust a lot more is this horizontal right here, and I believe that it holds a lot more weight, and we are kind of in the fuckboy range right now. And what do I mean by the fuckboy range? I mean that anywhere between about 9,600 and then this liquid zone right here, which I'll put another blue box in at the 98 to 9850-ish region, is a nothing region. It doesn't resolve anything for me until we start closing either 12-hour or dailies above 9,800 or 4 hours above 10,000 even. I don't really call any sort of a major breakout to the upside, and that really only leaves a delta of about $200 between this point right here on our last kind of spike high from yesterday to that critical area. So yes, that descending trend line is coming in around 9,700-ish region, but the margins are just too small here for me to really care all that much about it. And momentum oscillators are very beat up on the lower term timeframes, to be fair. We do see 4-hour Stokes way up there, and they will remain to the upside, to be fair, as long as Bitcoin essentially continues the trend here. We do see that it remains to the upside as long as Bitcoin's above 95.22. So as long as as long as this turns into a higher low right here, yes, we very likely will make that next leg up to test around 98, maybe 9,900 region, which will give it a chance to break to the upside. But this is more interesting to me right now because not only are the lower term timeframes looking like they're kind of setting up here, but the medium and higher term timeframes like the 12-hour and the daily are looking good. 12-hour Stokes pointed massively to the north side. However, as we said, there is a competing trend line coming in relatively soon. We probably will test it on the next tick or two, right around the edge of the bullish control zone. So I do think that is relevant. And more importantly, we do see there would be very likely, actually no, as it is right now, there would be no hidden divergences here as it is right now. But more importantly, historical volatility percentile is looking to expand. So we spoke about this the other day, right? Or sorry, we've been speaking about this the whole past week and a half. As long as the moving average remains in a positive slope on this, and we see the increasing historical volatility percentile bars here, I do think that we are going to test this trend line. But this trend line is within the context of a greater contraction phase. I do believe maybe better seen on a daily. Yeah, it's better seen on a daily. So I do believe that the daily is still contracting. The 12-hour is expanding. So what does that mean for a long-term look? It means that we're very likely to test the long-term ranges here. But do we actually resolve the macro, which is what the daily is going to more so speak to from a historical volatility percentile perspective? Because the higher than that is just, we don't have enough history really. I think that we're still kind of resolving all that. In the macro time frame region is 11,500 to the upside and about 6,900 to the downside, which we'll maybe document later. It's the same shit as yesterday, basically. But what I'm looking for here is I'm looking for the daily historical volatility percentile to pop up to this trend line alongside the 12-hour expanding to those regions that we just spoke about as well. And then price action probably caught between, the higher term time frame range and the macro range. That's essentially what I'm looking for right now from that perspective. Again, we're getting into derivatives of price action, so it's maybe a little bit less relatable. And for the people out there whose head spins, when you start thinking about shit like this, at the end of the day, man, the trend is your friend until the end of the trend. But kind of mediating that with the lower term time frame historical volatility percentile, you can see that we are actually within the context of a contraction phase here as well. I do see a regression kind of running through these last few highs, and it looks like the moving average on this has turned down. So the contraction is likely leading to price increasing to the upside, which is interesting, which suggests that the resolution of this formation as a whole is actually coming in sooner rather than later. I mean, because if you're looking at it like this, you're probably looking for resolution like in a week, it looks like, or around a week, around 6th of June. Realistically, I think that we probably get it probably around the turn of the month, if that. So very, 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 very interesting things here. Of course, to the downside, higher term time frame level is still 8,600. I don't really get bearish until we and bearish means, you know, $1,000 plus move to the downside until we break 8,600 on at the very least a 4-hour total closure. A 12-hour daily extremely likely does it, and then I look for a quick move down to 8,100, probably a small bounce there, and assuming that the bounce fails, I'd look for a move down here to 7,500 and then probably extension to 6,900. At which point I do think that Bitcoin could have another major low end. I'd want to see it in real time, but for right now, Bitcoin's obviously a lot more hinting towards the upside here, and well, while I don't necessarily want to get too gung-ho just yet, like I said, I will be waiting for these higher term time frame closures. It does appear that Bitcoin is, well, from a fundamental perspective and also a technical perspective, acting relatively well. I mean, at the end of the day, this is an uptrend. I mean, it's a higher low on a daily on it's very easily seen on CMEs. 2-day has it as well, confirmed already. 3-day is going to confirm it later today, very, very likely, and weekly is continuing. I mean, it's looking all fine to me thus far, but a few of those criteria need to be met. So like I said, for right now, this is not really, I feel like the easy trades have been had right now, and now it's time to wait for those higher term time frame closures, which for the spot price action is a little bit different here, just because obviously we do have to wait a few more days for it, but the pivotal moment for the monthly closure is actually going to be more like 9,300, and that's massively obtuse to what we saw on CMEs, which is about $200 higher. So a nice buffer zone there. If Bitcoin can just hold its footing for the next few days, which is saying a lot to be fair, then a close above 9,300 very likely does initiate a move, at least a test of 11,000, probably 11,500. That's where the super macro comes in at 11,500, because that is the area that Bitcoin's been getting massive liquidity hunts for the last 2.5 years, ever since January 2018. This massive 50% down from the breakdown of 11.5 to 6,000. Another double top here about a month later in February. We're getting rejected 2 times before doing about the same move. Then again about a year later in July 2019, same area, and then again in August, a month later after that, or a month and a half later after that. Volume profile agrees as well. Not just after 10.5, but even infinitely more above 11.5. I get above 11.5 on a higher term time frame closure, like a weekly, I get massively bullish. Yes, there's going to be ebbs and flows. There's going to be major downs because Bitcoin plays in big numbers, but realistically, I'd be looking for moves towards 16,000 and 20,000 would be the areas of interest there. And this asset's going to get infinitely more volatile. On top of that, from a weekly perspective, you can see that the 21 exponential moving average is still being the harbinger of light here, as we do see, historically speaking, anytime that Bitcoin's been above it, generally good. Anytime that Bitcoin both has been above it in terms of price action, plus it has a positive slope, very, very good. That's kept you long in the same way that the 200 simple has on the 2-day throughout these nasty dumps, but long-term major fucking pumps in this area right here, in this area right here, and more recently, actually, to the downside in this area right here. So this is very, very interesting. And then of course, not only that, but if we throw on the 55 as well, we can take that another step further. Anytime that we've had this cross between these two major moving averages, generally good things have happened, especially when price actions, close to it when it actually happens, but like back on over here in 2015, more recently in 2019 right here. And you can kind of see that for yourself, which I do believe holds quite a significant amount of weight, just all things considered. So, overall, I do think that Bitcoin's going to have a chance to the upside here. I don't really get even short-term bearish until Bitcoin goes back down below this area that we broke out of yesterday at 9,300-ish region. Even then, I'd get short-term bearish for a move probably back down right below 9,000 to like 8,900-ish region. And then I can't really get long-term bearish until we break below 8,600, looking for that next likely $1,500 move to the downside, although extremely likely a $1,000 move to the downside. Other than that, do we want to go look at probabilities? I'm sure that the upside probability is pretty damn good, or looking pretty damn nice right now. I'll do 9,800 for a daily close and a 12-hour close. I'm curious what those are going to show right now. On a 12-hour closure, it's showing, where is it? There it is, 24.11%, which is very high. I mean, that's well within the reason of possibility. Like I said, anything over 16% is very good. It means that it's reasonable to expect that it actually could happen on that closure. Daily, I mean, it's within the first standard deviation is what I'm trying to say. On a daily, it's obviously a lot more high at 30.75%, and this is massively different than the downside right now. Obviously, because I'm using the long-term time frame range for the downside at 8,600 at 1.16%. If we were more generous to it and gave it 9,300, I'm sure that it would be more comparable. But that's only relevant to the short term. So that's still even higher to the upside probability at 9,800 versus 27% to the downside on the 12-hour. That same area to the downside would be, come on, populate. There we go. 18.14 versus 24% to the upside again. So to me, this is actually getting geared up for another test of the upside. From a slope perspective, it is also bias the upside here too. I want to put it on future just to double check here. I'd imagine it's going to be up as well. Yes, indeed it is, and that's going to be also confirmed on the daily too. So that's the thing is, it's actually even a higher probability to break the top side of the range for the higher term timeframes for Bitcoin than it is to even break below the lower term timeframe range for Bitcoin, which is only at 9,300. So I think that that's a little bit of a sombering perspective right there, and I would say that probabilities certainly favor the bulls right now. And if the bulls are going to take control, and this is what I can say a little more forthrightly, it's very likely to happen around the turn of the month, and probably propelled by CME's closures a little bit later today. So I'd keep a keen eye on that. Other than that, I think that the strength in the overall stock market helps out Bitcoin as well. NASDAQ making new highs, of course, on this rally. But is the short-term rally over here? We hit all of our targets to the upside at 9,600, and we even hit our target to the downside a couple of days ago at 9,150. I don't have anything to add on to this right now. I'd be saying the same thing as Bitcoin. Wait for the monthly. It's closing today, and a monthly close above 9,000, and I'm just going to be generally bullish for a retest of the prior highs and probably new all-time highs. Extremely likely new all-time highs if that were to happen. Now it's a long trading day to go, but assuming that it doesn't dump 430 points by end of day, I would remain overall bullish. Doesn't mean that it can't pull back to the 9,000-ish region. In fact, I think that it probably would pull back sometime in June, but that's going to be very likely a major opportunity as the thing sets up. We do see all momentum oscillators looking good here. We do see monthly RSI going to get back into the bullish control zone and also regain the exponential. On top of that, we are going to see contraction phase as price action goes to the upside, very, very likely, as we're red as the fucking devil's dick right now. So fair enough. I think that adds on efficacy to this rally, and then I'm curious what it would take to get the reverse Stochastic integrated across to go back up to the upside. Yeah, above 9,700. Okay, so interesting. So very interesting actually. Let's go check out E-mini futures for SPY, maintaining above the 200 simple right here. Basically have the same thing to say about this. Not as strong as NASDAQ, but we are going to see a potentially very, very nice monthly closure. Anywhere above wherever the 10 simple is, which is... yeah, we're actually above it right now at 3,000-ish region. I would be looking for a retest of 320, 330. Basically the same thing as NASDAQ. Probably gets new all-time highs if it closes above that later today at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So keep an eye on that, as these are going to have major implications. And seeing as Bitcoin is traded with, as far as the long-term trend goes, the traditional markets for the last 10 years, I would be looking at that as a very good thing for Bitcoin. If it were to happen, and we're going to see major, well, I was going to say hidden bullish divergence, but that's, I think the easy parts of that one's already played out. Calling that one a little bit too late, man. Bad, Krown, very bad. But yeah, as far as this goes, I don't have anything to really say about it today. I just want to see that monthly close and then judge from there. But looking like it's set up for a nice one. It's looking like it's set up for a nice one. Now I'm curious, is there anything glaring me in the face? Historical volatility percentile is contracting here and probably does continue to contract. I'm just kind of visualizing an apex here somewhere around August, insinuating resolution around late June maybe. Probably lines up pretty damn well with Bitcoin now, doesn't it? Going back to that one. Looking at gold, same thing here. I want to see the monthly close. Any monthly close here or higher, I think looks good for continuation to 1800 plus over the next month or two, but it's a long day left to go, and the daily looks like it could very easily get into trouble here. So I don't want to say too much about that. I want to wait for the monthly close there. I feel like we've had the easy trades, getting a lot of those targets hit this month. It's time to kind of sit back and let the market tell you what, or let the market kind of tell you what it wants to do next, or at least try, Let's go look at Bitcoin dominance as well. I just want to make sure that that's kind of still within the range that we were looking at. Yeah, that makes it difficult. I'd still be overall bullish on this. But I want to see the monthly close here as well. Let's see what it looks like as of right now. Monthly close actually looks bearish thus far. So I would perhaps I might be looking for a little bit of an for an altcoin party. Interesting. Let's go look at Mr. Buteral. Mr. Buteral must have broken above 215.5 yesterday, the critical area that we were speaking about. Yes, indeed it did. It even closed the daily above there. I look at this as good, man. This is a resolution of an ascending triangle to the upside, and I think measured move probably pointed it towards 245 if I recall correctly, something like that. Actually a little bit lower than that. It's about 245. Yeah, I do think it's going to give another run towards 245, 250-ish region. Looks good there. Perhaps even leads the party here. Daily RSI looking fine. Daily Stokes looking healthy. I like what I'm seeing here. Litecoin just below $45, definitely the laggard of this group. But if Bitcoin moves up here, I'd be looking for it to tag up towards $50. So yeah, Buteral and Bitcoin leading the market, it looks like. Buteral looking a little bit better, making a new high on that rally. Bitcoin not making that new high, but setting up rather well here. So I do think that I do think that Bitcoin's probably going to test this area around 97 or 9800ish region, and then depending upon how CMA closes later today, does that give it a chance to actually resolve itself to the upside, initiate that next move to 10.5 or technically the measure move to 11,000, which takes us above that 10,500 high in February, which likely does initiate a free ride to about 11.5. That's where the macro comes in. That's where I think things start to get very, very interesting. For the long-term traders, especially to the downside. Again, short-term, I don't really have like a good area here. You could use the spike low of yesterday at 9,400. Doesn't really help out all that much. It's really 9,300 the area that the bulls need to hodl here in order to keep the short-term momentum up. However, if 9,300 does get lost, I would look for a move very likely all the way down to 8,900-ish region, give or take a few bucks there, and then I'll come back and reassess. Of course, higher term time frame ranges still the same, 8,600 to the downside, and about 9,800 to the upside, all on 12-hour or daily total closures. 4-hour equivalent would be 10,000 to the upside and about 85 to the downside. I think that's going to do it for right now. Video's already 32 minutes, probably 32 minutes too long. I want to wish you well once again. Take care. Wish you the best and the happiest of the happiest. It's been an absolute pleasure today, and until next time.